Hi everyone, I'm Stephen Padilla, Director of Coaching for USBC. It's time to get back into some physical game talk. So with many ways to start, I've chosen to break the physical game into several different pieces. Those pieces include the stance and the start, we'll talk about timing, and also the finish position. So let's start with where we step on the approach for the first time in the stance, and just talk a little bit about what we expect to see for most players inside that part of their game. So the stance has to do a lot with preparation and getting ready for the motion of delivering the shot. The stance and the start are going to give you basically the foundation for what everything else is based off of as it goes through the approach. In the stance, we look for balance. We want the player to have footwork that keeps their balance and posture specifically comfortable so that they can repeat that motion when they go from shot to shot. The stance is going to have typically flexed knees. They're going to have their posture typically slightly forward. They're also going to have the bowling ball somewhere toward the center of their body, either in front of their body or slightly to their ball side, to give them a good sense of balance in regards to getting started as a whole. Now the actual start is a little different because now the bowling ball is going to move and the footwork are going to move. And synchronization of those together leads us into the middle part, which is our timing. But the start is very key because a lot of times it's what puts everything into motion, and therefore, once everything's in motion, typically it tends to already stay on whatever path it started on. So in the start, we want to make sure that somebody's doing whatever the technique is the same each time, and want to make sure they're set up in a balanced position in order to get started effectively. Now, once they get started, whether they're taking 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 steps in their approach, once they get started with the ball moving at the same time the footwork are moving, now we have the introduction of timing, which is going to be the ball swing and its cadence, as well as the synchronization of each footstep along that ball swing path. So timing is one of the biggest keys we hear in coaching a lot, but it's also an area where players try to look for liabilities or something wrong with their game, and they a lot of times will blame what's going on timing as opposed to figuring out what's happening perhaps at the finish or in the start. But timing overall is one of the biggest factors in getting somebody consistently through the same motion and being able to repeat, which is a big factor in the game of bowling in general. So in regards to timing, whatever a player starts with, make sure they're repeating that same sequence if they're going through their motions, or if it needs to be corrected, that you do some kind of adjustment to either the ball start and or the footwork start so that ultimately you wind up with whatever the finish position is that you desire. So everything from the stance and start and the timing lead into the finish position. Now this is where we really take an assessment of exactly what's happening, and we want to see our player be very consistent in repeating what it is that gets them to the same deliveries and the same releases each time. So the finish position, we're looking for balance. We want our player to have a consistency at getting to the same location each time. We also want our player to feel like they've got control of the momentum that's created through the stance, the start, and the timing of the approach. So the finish position is key to putting all the pieces together to complete a successful approach. So from the stance and start, through the timing, and all the way to the finish, the entire physical game has a lot of moving parts. And as an athlete, you want to be aware of what's moving and also how to adjust it if necessary. From the coaching perspective, you want to have an understanding of what your player is capable of doing, and then how that needs to be adjusted if it gets out of synchronization. So for more coaching content, be sure and check right back with us here at the lab on Bowl TV.